Good Wednesday night, everybody, and welcome to Live Ramp Real Access Motivates Progress 100th episode. Tonight is a huge milestone for all of us tonight. This is the 100th episode of Ramp, and we couldn't be more excited. That means 100 organizations have been highlighted, 100 organizations that deal with the disability community and all that they have to do and celebrate throughout the country. We are very excited. Before we get started and bring our guests, because we have some amazing guests for you today, Governor Dan McKee had sent us a quick video because he couldn't be here with us today. So let's hear a few words from our governor.
Hi, I'm Governor Dan McKee, and it's an honor to be part of RAMP's 100th podcast episode with my friend Tina Peterson. The Americans with Disability Act turned 32 this year. It is one of the most important pieces of legislation ever signed in our country, giving Americans with disabilities protections against discrimination. In Rhode Island, we recognize the importance of accessibility for all, and my administration is working hard every day to ensure everyone has the same access to opportunities and services. Whether it's the housing or food security or jobs, we look at these issues daily through the lens of ensuring all Rhode Islanders are able to not just live in the Ocean State, but they are able to thrive here. On behalf of the entire state of Rhode Island, I'd like to congratulate Tina and RAMP on this milestone podcast, and I wish you tremendous success in the future.
We want to thank Governor Dan McKee for his great words, and he is such a huge supporter of our organization and our mission. But I have two amazing people with us today who are also very good champions for our organization as well as the mission. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos and Congressman Jim Langevin. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tina.
Great to be with you.
I'm going to ask Congressman Langevin to go first because Congressman Langevin was on our very first episode of RAMP that aired July 26th, 2019. We talked about the 30th anniversary of the ADA Act. So now he's on our 100th show. So Congressman, please tell everybody, if they don't know who you are by now, they lived under a rock, but tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, hello, Tina, and congratulations on the 100th episode of your RAMP podcast. This is really exciting and a wonderful milestone. I was proud to be on the first episode of your podcast, and very proud to be on the 100th episode, and to be with our great Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos. So I'm Congressman Jim Langevin. I have proudly represented the 2nd Congressional District of Rhode Island now for going on 22 years, and been an honor and a privilege to serve. I'm a C5-6 quadriplegic as a result of a spinal cord injury and accidental gunshot when I was serving as a war police cadet back in 1980. So I've been paralyzed for many years now, but have never let that get in my way. Just as I never let your disability get your way, Tina. And we've been working together to try to make the world more accessible and inclusive, and I'm proud of our collaboration. So great to be with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. We're so proud to have you with us today. And one of our biggest champions who has hit the ground running since she became Lieutenant Governor, and always been a big advocate of ours, Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you for this opportunity to be here celebrating with you in this milestone, your 100th episode. So congratulations on the work that you do, and I'm honored to be here with Congressman Langevin, who has been a strong advocate for Rhode Island and Washington. And this year, actually, he's decided to retire from his role as congressman, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna see him around here in Rhode Island, continue his service to our state of Rhode Island. So thank you, Congressman Langevin, for what you have been doing to serve the people of Rhode Island. Thanks. It's an honor for me to be here with all of you. Tina, as you mentioned earlier, I was appointed Lieutenant Governor last year when Governor McKee became governor. The state of Rhode Island's constitution says that the governor gets to appoint the lieutenant governor whenever there is a vacancy. And in this case, since he became governor, there was a vacancy for the office, and I was appointed to be lieutenant governor. I had this honor to serve the state of Rhode Island in this role. But before that, I was a member of the Providence City Council. And most recently, I was the president of the Providence City Council. So I had the experience of being in the local government, and see how things gets done at the local level. And now I brought that experience to the office of lieutenant governor, and has been very useful because in this role, I had the opportunity to work with different municipalities and leaders from different municipalities here in the state of Rhode Island. It's really has been an honor, and I'm looking forward to continue this work here.
Oh, we look forward to working with you. Congressman Langevin, since you've been with me since the very beginning, you watched RAMP grow from its inception. Tell us a little bit about what you've seen, and if you've seen any impact in Rhode Island and beyond from what RAMP has been doing.
Yeah. Well, Tina, I appreciate your advocacy and, calling out those areas where more needs to be done to bring down barriers and make accessibility more universal. Particularly working with the business community. I know that's been one of your strengths, particularly going and really speaking with business owners on an individual basis and doing reviews of their establishment to say what's working, what's not, what could be made better so things are more accessible, getting in and out of doorways, having a ramp built or have a portable ramp on hand. I know in some cases you've actually been able to give out portable ramps to business owners. In fact, where I go to get my haircut downtown Providence, she was one of the beneficiaries of your of one of the ramps that you gave out, and I've used that ramp now to go in and out of her establishment. So it's been a wonderful thing to again promote awareness. And we still have a lot of we have a great milestone in the anniversaries of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and in all that act did to make things in the world a more inclusive, accessible place for people with disabilities. But there's still more progress that needs to be made, and I'm glad that you're moving the ball forward on accessibility.
Oh, thank you so much. Lieutenant Governor, in the short time that you have, well, a little bit more than a short time, but have been around and been working with me from the beginning, what have you seen and what has been so eye-opening for you with what we have been promoting and what we have been doing?
I appreciate the work that you do, Tina, in working especially with the business community, as the congressman was mentioning. I have seen you just being an ally in making sure that you approach the business community and you're speaking the language that they understand. You talk about how would you like to increase the number of people that come to your business? Well, you always remind them that there are people that are in wheelchairs that cannot access their business. And you always make that business case to them and let them know that what you're trying to do is to help them make their business accessible. You're not trying to play gotcha with them, but you want to be a resource to assist them. That has been something that I admire on the work that you do. And also you do it and always, I think you are with the best attitude towards the work that you're doing, and make everybody feel relaxed and comfortable when you're talking about the issues of access and accessibility. So I admire that work that you have been doing.
Oh, thank you. And we can't remiss to say what happened this weekend. Something so organic that happened because I just happened to be with you at a walk. If you want to tell everybody a little bit about how it happened, and how it made you feel when you realized that I was trapped.
Yeah, so we were doing the walk to an Alzheimer at Roger Williams Park, and Tina was getting ready to go to another walk, actually, because Tina's everywhere. She was going to go to Warwick for the body walk that have to do with individuals that have autism. And I just remember we were walking and Tina was going to her van to leave and she was trapped basically. Two cars has parked so close to her that she's not was not able to move her car, was not able to get into her car to move it. And that makes me realize firsthand, I was able to see the consequences of having a parking space designated that and that everyone respect, because sometimes we have the designation and people don't respect the designation and people park there when they shouldn't. But also to understand that uh, the parking spaces have to be wide enough so someone in wheelchair has access to get in the vehicle. So it was an eye opening for me to see that.
And you fixed the problem because she just grabbed the key out of my hand and jumped in my van and moved my van for me, because a lot of us don't go out with people. So I usually have to depend on asking a stranger to move my van, and you hope they don't just take off with it, that they actually just move your van so you can get in and they don't take off with it. But she actually jumped in the van and moved it for me. And it was just such an eye-opening piece, because it was so great for her to see exactly what we deal with. Now, Congressman Langevin, I know you've dealt with this once or twice in, all the years that you have going on. I said, but the fortunate thing is you usually have a staffer with you. But does it still happen to you?
Yeah, absolutely. As you were, as Lieutenant Governor Matos was speaking about the issue, and you were talking about the issue, of course, brings back memories of many times that it happens. It just all the time on a daily basis. You pull up somewhere, even if you're in a handicapped spot, and then there's say nobody next to you, or it's a spot that's designated for handicapped access, but then someone parks too close to you, and you can't get into the vehicle. The ramp, the side door of my van comes out. The ramp comes down. Same thing with your van, Tina, and you need the ability to make the circle, get in to the onto the ramp and into the van. And if there's a car too close, you're not going anywhere. Fortunately, you're right. I have a driver usually that drives me around, and so he's able to just hop in the van and move it back. But not everyone's going to have that that ability to have someone with them all the time. So
Eh. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Congressman. What do you think of some of the ways that we can address this so it could stop happening, so that we can just go out and about and live our daily lives? Like, what are some of the things that we can address this with?
yeah, making sure that we have uh, more accessible parking spots that are ramp van accessible, so that you have those yellow lines, the striped lines on the side of the parking space, so that that there's no one parking there, and hopefully you see that is enforced. Sometimes it happens. People say, "Oh, I'm only going to be a minute," and they go into they park in the spot that's meant to be to allow that access, and they run into the store, and it takes them longer than what you think, and then they in the meantime they've inconvenienced someone, and
Yeah.
you never know what the ripple effects are, like what that person has a doctor's appointment they need to rush to, or other to pick up the kids from daycare. It could be any number of things that now you're someone that parks illegally is
Yeah.
affecting the life of someone with a disability. And so I
Yeah.
think just more awareness is important. I love the fact that that years ago we used to have PSAs, as I recall, about handicap accessible parking spots, or disability awareness. Those things are very helpful, and it's always a good thing we can remind people that respect the laws, be courteous, and think that how it might affect someone if you're parking in a spot that is going to block someone from getting access to their vehicle.
That is so funny you say that, because that's exactly the words that came out of Lieutenant Governor's mouth on Sunday. Was we need to do PSAs about this. How do you feel about doing something like that and bringing that back to make sure people are aware of not inconveniencing us?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that public education always goes a long way, and I think that often perhaps people don't have a nefarious intent. They're not intentionally trying to cause harm. It's just a matter of not being aware of how their actions might affect other people. So, public education campaigns, I think, are always a win-win.
Sabina, would you like to do something like that going forward? If you were, to stay in office?
Yeah, that definitely. I would love to do that, and I would love to do the PSAs in both English and Spanish, so make sure that we get the message out to every community. Especially, I always like how you give us the data that and let us know that um, this is a group that anybody can become a part of. I love how you always give us that data and also reminding us that the state of Rhode Island's population is getting older and there's going to be more need for accessibility for businesses. If they want people to come to their business, they're going to be more people using walkers and more people using wheelchairs. So we have to make sure that we have more, we are more conscious about the need of having more accessible parking spaces and more accessible businesses also.
Yeah. With our next topic, I'm going to stay with you, Lieutenant Governor, on this, is housing. How important is it to make sure that when we're building all of these affordable housing, that we're making sure we're making them physically accessible for everybody?
It is crucial, and especially as I was talking right now about the state of Rhode Island population getting older, we're going to have more needs to have housing that is accessible for our older adult population that's getting older. But also, we have a challenge here in the state of Rhode Island is because we are such an old state and our cities are very old. We have housing infrastructures that were built like 100 years ago. It's really challenging sometimes to make those units accessible. So we have to make sure that every unit that we're building, we are thinking about adding accessibility component to every new unit that is being built.
Yeah, I mean, that is such an important piece, with 32 years after the ADA, there are 7 people, I'm not going to say what park it is, but there are 7 people living in a park right now that are all in wheelchairs that are homeless only for the fact that they don't have any place to go in or to get to or an affordable place to live. I know exactly what that feels like because in 2020, I was a month away from being homeless myself because I couldn't find an affordable, accessible place for me to live. Luckily, I was able to connect with Habitat for Humanity and built my home, but everybody doesn't have that luxury. Congressman Langevin, can you go in a little further on how important housing, accessible housing is?
Yeah, it's vitally important, and there's such a short supply of accessible, affordable housing. We know that we're facing a affordable housing crisis in the state, as we are in places around the country right now, and that gets even more compounded if you're someone living with a disability, because that's even fewer units that are available. So short supply on just regular affordable housing, then you add accessible affordable housing into that, it makes it even more challenging. So, I'm always looking for ways to bring back more federal dollars to address the federal housing crisis. And I know we have been doing that, and the state has been stepping up more. And I applaud Governor McKee and Lieutenant Governor Matos for their leadership on accessible, affordable housing. And there's just a lot of work to do ahead. We need to get more supply made available, built and made available to people.
We're going to stay on you, Congressman Langevin. We're going to talk about some of the champion things that you are standing behind right now. One I'm seeing firsthand with me traveling all over the place with my new title, and flying for the first time was fun, but it went smoothly with all of your guidance. But tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing for people with disabilities at the state level, the federal level.
Sure. So, very recently, one of the bills that I was able to get through, this is last Congress, um, starting in I believe it was in 2018. I passed the Bill of Rights for airlines passengers with disabilities, and basically through the 2018 FAA reauthorization bill, I included language to create a Bill of Rights for airline passengers with disabilities. I thought this was important. And people with disabilities, when they're traveling, need to be treated with respect and dignity. And so this bill was finally published in DOT's website in July 2022, and includes, among other things, the right to be treated with dignity and respect, the right to receive information in an accessible format about air travel and what people will face, and then the right to travel with an assistive device or service animal. So that's the what we have done. And what I'm also trying to do, though, is create and pass the Air Carrier Access Amendments Act. So basically, this bill would address air travel challenges for people with disabilities, and giving them a basically recourse when they're not treated fairly. This is a big deal. We all know about broken devices or people not being, treated properly when they're on the plane or getting on the plane or getting off the plane. And right now there is no private right of action. You can't take the airline to court, for example. So we want to change things. Hopefully it doesn't come to this, that the airlines with better training and services will avoid difficulties and will be able to treat people with disabilities with more respect. But the Air Carrier Access Amendments Act would basically require, for example, the Department of Transportation to level civil penalties against airlines for Air Carrier Access Act violations, and it would refer complaints to the Department of Justice for investigation and enforcement, particularly when cases are particularly egregious. We also establish a private right of action for airline passengers when these rights are violated, and it would create an updated accessibility standards for new commercial aircraft, and it would require the removal of access barriers on existing aircraft. So, for example, in the future, we're hoping that as new aircraft are designed, that people would hopefully be able to stay in their chairs if possible, or there would be an accessible restroom on the plane. Right now, those restrooms are so tiny, there's no way a person is going to be in there, especially if they're in a chair. So I'm also working on another bill to help ensure that airlines update their lithium-ion wheelchair battery policies to be more restrictive than current, to be no more restrictive than current safety standards. So the FAA, for example, has safety protocols for certain lithium-ion batteries, because all lithium-ion batteries are not created equal, and some are really high-end, like the batteries that I have in my chair that have all kinds of safety features in them. And then there's the kind of the cheap Chinese knockoffs that people probably might be familiar with, like hoverboards that have burst into flames. There's a totally different lithium-ion batteries, and so the FAA has guidelines and protocols to ensure passenger safety and make sure that they everybody's safe when they're in an airplane, or they wouldn't travel, and so they wouldn't be able to go on. But the airlines need to update their policies, because not all of them have, and I've experienced that firsthand, where I've been denied the ability to have my chair put on the plane.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. People don't understand that we're the first ones loaded on the plane and when the last one's off the plane, and we can't use the bathroom in between that time. So I sit on the airplane when I went to Florida a couple of weeks ago and saw how many people passed by me to use the restroom. Now realize that you can't use that restroom, or you can't. And, if our chair gets broken, I mean, besides everything else and being able to sue them, but if I get to Florida and my chair is broken, it's not like your luggage where you can just go buy another outfit. I don't have another chair. I don't have another means of getting around. I'm literally trapped. So having our chairs, until we can dock our chairs on the plane, is going to be really the only way that we can ensure that we're safe and our chairs are safe, and we end up at the other end with, great transportation that we can still get around.
Agreed. And I'm hopeful that future designs of aircraft will have a spot for someone in a chair they just pull in and get locked down, and will be safe and comfortable while they're traveling. I've done that, by the way, before. When I travel, on military aircraft, C-130s, for example. That's like the ultimate in handicapped accessible travel because the back of the plane drops down. You can just ride right up the back. But I don't see us all flying the public, traveling on C-130s on a
No,
regular.
but I kind of like that idea because you are well taken care of when you're surrounded by our military. So,
That's right.
I would love to fly that at least once, just to say it's a bucket list item, because that's pretty cool. I know I'll be in good hands with our military. Um, Sabina, tell us a little bit more about what you have seen. I mean, I know we have been at a lot of events together because you're as many events as I am. What have you seen, the reaction from other people, and the idea of how easily it is to become accessible from being out and about with me, and why should people do this?
Again, like just seeing the way how you go about communicating, how easy it is to make their business accessible, just to let them know that it's not as costly as they may think, that there are some solutions that can be implemented easily right away. I remember you going into a business and making sure that they had, just making sure they had the bar that it was accessible for someone in a wheelchair. Just are things that we take for granted. We're not thinking about when we are it's starting a new business. Just in seeing you going around and being willing to, as you say, just roll around. I'm going to roll around your business. That I love when you tell them that. I can roll around your business and let you know if your business is accessible, yes or no. What are the changes that you can make that to make the business accessible? And also you provide links and ideas of resources and grants that are available to help businesses become accessible. It's been a pleasure going with you in also experiences, some of the many experiences that we had together this year, but going in the impossible dream, that
The
was
sailboat.
the sailboat. That was a great experience, and seeing a sailboat that is designed in thinking about individuals on wheelchairs to make sure that there's accessibility. It has been great to see you in action.
Yeah, and it's not as hard as you think, and we're some amazing people that you're missing out on by not letting us in and not meeting us. I mean, we just had our Accessibility is Beautiful 2 event, and you both got to attend that event. All of our vendors had disabilities. All of our entertainers had disabilities. Did you notice any difference really once you got down and involved and talking to people? Sabina, tell everybody what your experience was on that and how everybody just kind of blended.
It was great. And also, we got to remember, we had there available one of the Tina stables, right? So I
Yes.
was able to go to the food truck, buy food on one of the food trucks that were there, and we were able to sit down and without making anyone feel uncomfortable or making anyone feel different. It's just, we just blend in as anybody would do to join in to enjoy a meal together at the event. Every event has great information for the business and the community at large. And yes, and you could see that there was nothing that would make anyone that was in a wheelchair feel like they were not part of the experience. Everyone was included. There was equity throughout the event.
And Tina, I think it's important. Yeah, I love what the Lieutenant Governor just had to say about, inclusiveness. And we're all, at Tina's table together, and everyone, is kind of on equal footing, if you will. And we're all just, sitting around a table. But in terms of also businesses, being able to get into businesses and shop around, what's the most important thing that businesses really need? They need customers, right? And so
Right.
by not having your business accessible, you're shutting out a whole segment of the population that is, that has money to spend. And so having your business accessible expands your customer base and hopefully grows the bottom line.
Yeah, and one of my goals for my next 100 podcasts and for my advocacy through the state is to make a new business that's going to open have to be ADA somewhat compliant before they open the doors. That's my goal. Not saying it's going to happen right away, but that's my goal, and then we can work on all the backlog. Because again, the more customers you let in, the greater your bottom line. So it's only good business because we don't usually come alone. I know I usually bring a gang of people with me, and we have fun. So you definitely want to let us in because we are always. But Lieutenant Governor, tell me within the next 5 minutes while we're ending the show soon, tell everybody what some of the goals that you would like to see for accessibility and for the disability community in the upcoming years.
Yeah, one of the things I want to work really hard on is making sure that right now, as we were mentioning earlier, thanks to the amazing federal delegation that we have, Congressman Langevin leading that also, we were able to get resources to come to the state of Rhode Island through the ARPA funding. And we were able to allocate for the first time in the history of the state of Rhode Island, $250 million for housing. So one of my priorities moving forward for this next 4 years, I want to make sure that the way how we allocate those funding right now within the housing plans, that make sure that we are developing housing that are as accessible and are available to the communities with disabilities, and also thinking about our population that is becoming older and older. So we want to make sure that the constructions of new units are accessible and are available to the community that needs them right now. So that's going to be one of my priorities. I want to continue this work of being very vocal and active with you, with RAMP, making sure that we get the message to every community that accessibility is beautiful, as you say, right? And that is something that we all should be working towards, making sure that every municipality embraces the accessibility is beautiful message and embrace accessibility throughout every program that they have, that their parks are accessible, that their recreation venues are accessible, and that this every building also official buildings where the public have to go, we have to make sure that they're fully accessible.
Yeah, and you read into a really good point, because here in Rhode Island, everybody is very fortunate because we have an organization in Rhode Island called RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress, that does free road throughs that will help guide you through every step of the way to making your business, event, or organization fully accessible to all people. So all you have to do is reach out to us and we'll come down free of charge just to help you get more customers. So the state of Rhode Island is very lucky to have this wonderful organization. Congressman Langevin, what would you like to see in the immediate future that we can tangibly do for the disability community?
Well, I continue to applaud your work, Tina, and I hope businesses will reach out to RAMP and have you come in. I believe that most businesses want to do the right thing. Sometimes they just don't know where to turn to say, what is, there is no right now official kind of good housekeeping seal of approval for, for accessibility. In some many ways, RAMP is as close as you might get. So I think that's really good. Beyond that, the three things that I'm working on beyond the Air Carrier Access Amendments Act, I'm looking to improve accessible transportation options for people, really to address the lack of reliable, accessible transportation that makes independent living, a challenge. So the bill that I've introduced, called the DATA Act, Disability Access to Transportation Act, would establish, for example, a one-stop paratransit pilot program, so that if someone is going, to say going to work or they're going to their destination, that they have the ability to do one stop along the way. So you think of a parent who's going to go to work in the morning, but needs to drop off the child at daycare before they go on to work. Right now, that's not possible, right? But under current law and current construct, we want to make sure that it is possible. There's a one stop along the way, and it would increase funding for transit mobility grants for older adults and people with disabilities. So that's one. The next bill I'm working on is the Ready for Disasters Act. This basically would help ensure that people with disabilities are a forethought, not an afterthought, in disaster planning and disaster management. We saw what happened down in Florida. My heart goes out to the people in Florida that are dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. And I pray for their recovery quickly. But major losses, and people had to go to shelters. But if shelters, for example, aren't accessible, let's say, and it does happen, and they're not providing for the needs of of people with disability that's not a for, they can be shut out. Maybe they're not going to get into that shelter. Maybe they're not going to get the assistance they need in disaster. So we want to make sure that there's pre-planning that's done, and people with disabilities and their needs are front of mind. The last thing I'll mention, and there are many, is the investments in home and community-based services and the care economy. Congress really needs to follow through on President Biden's commitment to make historic investments in home and community-based services and the care economy. And we almost got it done last year, but we just need to keep pushing so that more Americans can live more independent lives. So these are my priorities as I work right up and through to the end of the year when my term ends. And as you mentioned, I won't be seeking re-election, but I am going to make sure that these bills are handed off to colleagues. And Debbie Dingell is the new co-chair of the Bipartisan Disabilities Caucus that I created in Congress, and that will continue. And I'm grateful for her leadership, and I know that she'll continue take up these causes. But I'll be active, hopefully on the outside as a private citizen, continue to advocate for these bills and others, because I think this accessibility is so important, and there my work will never end. And I look forward to continuing our partnership there, Tina, as well, and with Lieutenant Governor Matos.
Yeah. And as much as Rhode Island is affordable with having ramp, we're actually blessed to have Congressman Langevin living in our state. So even though he's not going to be in Congress anymore, he's still going to be in Rhode Island, and everybody knows everybody in Rhode Island. So he will still be a mentor and a champion for me, because he's always where I turn when I run into a stump or I don't know anything. So Congressman Langevin, thank you for all you do, and I can't wait to work with you years to come, because you can't get rid of me. You're stuck with me as long as you live here in Rhode Island. I'll find you. But it's all good. But I thank you both for being such champions for this community and opening your minds and changing other people's perspective. We're a world that we want to live, eat, breathe, dance, drink, have fun, get hired, have jobs, have lives like everybody else does. And it's not our disability that holds us back. It's the world's inaccessibility that holds us back. So if we make the world more accessible, we can live a normal life like you do, as much as, it may look a little different because I have a cool wheelchair. But other than that, it's all good. So thank you both very much. Any parting words, Sabina?
I just want to say congratulations for your achievement. I'm always amazed to see everything that you set your mind to do, you get it done. And we are lucky here in the state of Rhode Island that to have you here in the state of Rhode Island, the work that you and Ramp does every day. I also have to acknowledge and thank Congressman Langevin for what he has done representing the state of Rhode Island in Congress, and also making sure that Congress became more accessible. So there is a history that we're going to be telling for a long time about how Congressman Langevin made sure that Congress was more accessible also. So it's truly an honor for me to be here with both of you today.
Amazing. Any last words, Congressman?
I thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for those very kind words and your support over the years. I appreciate your leadership and the work that you're doing on so many levels, both for seniors and for small businesses and for people with disabilities. So thank you so much for that. And I look forward to that partnership continuing. And Tina, just congratulations on all the success that RAMP has achieved, opening up doors and making the world more accessible for people with disabilities. And congratulations on the 100th anniversary of the 100th episode of your podcast. Again, another great milestone, and honored to be on with the first time and be on the 100th episode as well.
And we will have both of you on for years to come, no matter what office or position that you hold. You guys are always welcome on the Ramp podcast in the next 100 or 1,000 episodes, because Tina's not going to stop until she's not breathing anymore. So you'll be seeing this podcast for a very long time. So thank you both so much. I request everybody join us every Wednesday night live at 7 o'clock for our next 100 podcasts. And as I always say, don't just sit there, everybody. Make a difference. Have a great night.